Yeah, sometimes, how about a little simple?
I couldn't do it now. I mean, you usually need some kind of motivation.
Oh,
We usually build a whole piece around it and then do a fall and the whole thing. We don't do that this year, I don't think.
I know, sometimes happen to me too, sometimes.
You get motivation from that, huh?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, well, Chevy? Should be, okay, I'll be coming. Nice talking to you, nice meeting you.
That's nice,
Okay.
Good luck to you.
See you later. Live from New York, it's Saturday night!
Hello and welcome to the Not Ready for Primetime podcast. We're Gary Seath and Brad Robinson.
And you're not.
This week we are talking about Season 2, Episode 1, with host Lily Tomlin and musical guest James Taylor. This episode originally aired on September 18th, 1976. Brad, it's Season 2.
We're back, baby. Season 2.
We're back. And because we're back and it's a celebration of the season, we have a guest. Tell us who's here.
We have the man who literally wrote the book on Mr. Mike. Mr. Mike, the life and work of Michael O'Donoghue author. Dennis Perrin is with us. Dennis, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you. Please.
Dennis, this is great. We appreciate you joining us, and I can think of no better way to kick off Season 2 than talking to someone like you with so much history and knowledge of the show.
Well, let me say before we get into the show, you guys probably weren't even born when the show first aired. Am I guessing correctly?
Born?
You are correct.
No, yeah, right. I had to do math.
You had to do math?
Which I
September 76, you didn't know where you were born or not?
Well, that tells you what I'm working with here, Dennis.
Okay. I was just starting my senior year of high school.
Okay.
In Northern Indiana. And I was already a fan of SNL. Well, Saturday Night it was called at the time. And I remember this first episode, and it was really interesting because there was this anticipation for this next season. And I know you guys covered the two summer shows.
Yeah.
With Chris Christopherson and Louise Lasser.
Yeah.
But then they went away again for a month or maybe 6 weeks, something like that. And then they come back. Yeah. But there was a lot of anticipation for this there was no internet, there was no social media, but in terms of newspaper, TV writers and things like that, it's Saturday Night's coming back. And it was next to Python was my favorite show. So I was really, ready.
I understand you were excited for the show. Were you excited for Lily Tomlin? What was her space in your world at this time?
Well, I actually had a girlfriend who had some of Lily Tomlin's comedy records, albums. So I was familiar with her. And of course, I remember her from the first season. I mean, it was the fifth or sixth show. I mean, she was early.
Yeah.
I mean, she was well known. Of course, Laugh-In. I knew her from Laugh-In when I was younger. I mean, I love Lily Tomlin, but I mean, it wasn't Lily Tomlin I was looking forward to. It was the show. And it wasn't even Chevy. It was Dan Aykroyd. That's who I loved at first. He was the first Not Ready for Primetime player that, stamped his mark in my brain because of his brilliance, his precision, his weirdness, the fact that he could talk really fast and not fuck up. And he was my first SNL idol was Dan Aykroyd, definitely. He could do anything. I mean, he could do impressions, he could do weird voices. And of course, in the second season, he actually expanded. But the whole show together, too. I mean, I just like the feel of it. It was, to all of our younger listeners, I have to tell you, there was nothing like Saturday Night on at that time. There was no other show like it. I mean, you had Carol Burnett on Saturday nights. That was really the only other sketch show that was on TV, and it was on primetime, and it was, it was much more mainstream, and it owed more to 50s variety than anything. And Saturday Night was, Lampoon, Second City, and people who normally would not have been on television. I mean, now, everybody comes from everywhere, but back then this was a very specific thing.
Yeah. Anticipation's got to be high, and it's got to be so excited to sit down Saturday night and turn this on.
Oh yeah, yeah. And this was with aerials, no cable, so you had to constantly adjust To get the picture, you have like fuzz and.
Oh my, yeah. I mean, we'll talk about it when we get to the Gary Weiss film, but I had that same comment with the Taylor Mead. I was like, remember watching TV where you take the antennas and it's blurring, you're turning the knobs and the antennas at the same time to get your picture? Totally, yeah.
There was nothing like it. And I just, when I went back to watch the episode we're going to review, it just reminded me how special it really was. And when you were there at the time and the moment, it was very special. And there's a reason why it influenced a whole generation of humorists.
Absolutely. And I think, you're right to your point, especially at the beginning. Should we just get into the show?
Let's do it.
Yeah. All right. Good. For the cold open, you open on Gilda and Chevy outside the streets in New York City. And to your point, Dennis, right? That in and itself is an event at that time. Mm-hmm. Turns out that they're waiting for Lily Tomlin to show up because she hasn't arrived. It's 11:30. Chevy makes a remark that she hasn't been there all week. Gilda's trying to tell him how great it'll be because they know Lily. And she finally shows up with this giant entourage.
Yeah. And you sort of get a little hint of Chevy's foot being out the door.
With the cigar? Chevy smoking cigars.
Well, I mean, but he's talking about, I've had offers, Gone Show, Kojak, so it's sort of, he's making fun of the fact that he is taking off as a comic celebrity or comic actor, but he's mocking it at the same time, like he would do a Kojak or a Gong Show.
Right.
But it is a nod to the fact that he's out the door.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Lily introduces him to her entourage as Jerry.
She's had a lot.
Everybody gets a lot of offers. I've had a lot of offers too, but I'm here.
Like what offers have you had?
Kojak. I've been offered Kojak. Been offered Hollywood Squares, the Gong Show.
There she is.
Chevy Chase, haven't seen you so long. Oh, Goldie. Goldie. I haven't seen you since laughing.
No, thank you. We're kind of late, Lily. Let's move you right in because I think the show's kind of begun already.
Oh, wait a second. Oh, my gosh. Forgive me. Forgive me. I could just die. Forgive me. I forgot to introduce you. This is Jerry Chase. This is Raul Leon Campos Alexander. This is Leon. This is Prince Felipe. This is Lucia. This is Joe. Everyone, this is Goldie. Everyone, these are all my friends. And this, of course, is Pepe. Pepe, this is Jerry Chase. This is Goldie.
That whole entourage thing. And I love, when they went through the hallways back then and in the elevators, and that was all in real time. That was live.
They do a great job. Like you say, she takes the whole entourage. They go past the front desk. The front desk guy calls up to get Mr. Michaels, Lauren Michaels to say this. They get in the elevator and they do a great job of buying time for them to get in the elevator and get all the way up. Because like you said, it's all live. It's all real time. Yeah, and he's going off this little bit on the phone about then Lauren Michaels yelling at him and asking for his badge number and all that stuff. They do a great, and right on cue, doors open on 8. I thought that was wonderful timing. It was great.
That was fantastic. And again, it showed the confidence that the show had. I mean, coming off the first season, it was just this confident, like, hey, we're back and we're bold and we're just, nothing's going to hold us back. And of course, who better than Lily? Because, Lauren worked with Lily in the early 70s, and in the 70s was one of the 4 great American comics, her, Richard Pryor, Steve Martin, and George Carlin. I mean, that was an amazing time for American stand-up comedy. And they were the 4 comedy horsemen, if you will, horse people or equine people, however it goes. Anyway, but she's playing the diva. She's playing the diva. She's like, this celebrity. She doesn't know anybody's names.
Jerry, Goldie.
Yeah. What would she call Jane Curtin?
Joan. And then she gets her name right, and then she calls her Jane Belushi.
Jane Belushi.
Yeah. Which again, her reaction is fantastic. Yeah, her reaction is so good.
She has this little man, Pepe, who's supposed to be her chauffeur, I guess.
Oh, good. We're going to talk about Pepe.
Or like her
I was hoping
valet.
to bring this up.
And keep filling her glass with champagne. And, it was really, it was almost like a Fellini kind of a thing, like all these weird people.
Yeah.
I thought this was a great callback. I kept thinking of the Buck Henry Open when Buck couldn't get through the front door. And I thought this was like a great callback to the show itself. Like I kept that they were making fun of Buck. Like they were taking shots at Buck with this cold open because he couldn't get through and she just breezes in with an entourage. It was like a little extra thing that I just thought was so fun and so great.
Yeah. I mean, and Lauren did a lot of that in the early years, just playing with the access to the show itself. Yeah. People outside the studio or in the dressing room or whatever. I mean, it wasn't just in the studio. It was everywhere, the offices.
Right.
And in this case, the street.
Yeah. The street. And then back in the dressing rooms again, because Lily goes back into her dressing room and we're left with Pepe. And Chevy having a conversation outside of her dressing room as Chevy waits for Lily Tomlin, and Pepe trips Chevy into a conveniently placed folding chair.
Of course.
I'm not going to lie. I'm watching Pepe and Chevy have that conversation in the hallway.
Yeah.
And in all of my mind, I can think of is he's going to trip over Pepe. I was like, he's going to do the fall over Pepe, and that's going to be the fall. And so I was relieved when Pepe tripped him and knocked him into a chair, which I thought was a decent fall.
It gave him more. It gave him more agency, I think.
Yeah,
than just being like an ottoman, like Dick Van Dyke or something.
Thank God. I was worried they weren't. I was worried they weren't going to give him that.
And then he comes back at the end of the monologue and pours more champagne, and then we never see him again.
Yeah. No, we see him.
Oh, do we? Does he come back at the end?
He does the Antler Dance.
No, I didn't notice that. You could actually see him amid all those people?
Yeah.
Wow.
But anywho.
Well, Lily then comes on for her monologue and talks about how she's happy to be back. She wants to do something happy and fulfilling for the viewers and thanks them for bringing her into their lives.
Speaking of no changes, they still have the catwalk and the small center stage.
Yes. Yes. That is all the same.
It's still there.
Yes. And then she says, "We'll be right back." The audience applauds and she turns to the stage manager and says, "Do you think they bought that?" And then Pepe comes back and gives her champagne. It was a very fast monologue, but the cold open was longer than normal. So,
and it really wasn't funny. It was just more like, we're back.
Yeah.
This is us. Hello. Welcome back. They weren't really going for laughs.
No,
they were just more like, the presence of them.
And I had two things as I was typing my notes of this, and the same thing as you said, Gary. It's very quick, and she comes out, and it's very kind of simple and to the point. Like, happy to be here, and I was like, okay, just going kind of honest, sweet, happy to be here, monologue, whatever, and fades to black. And as I'm typing that, then they come back up. Oh, it's not done. It's not done. They do the joke, which after I finish, I want to ask Dennis if you could remember watching that, if you actually, how you took that watching it live. But the thing I took away from the monologue, regardless, by the end is, it's interesting. She doesn't mention, hey, it's season 2, season premiere. Doesn't mention a lot's changed since the last time I was on. It was almost like they just took a 2-week break. It was just, they made no big pop, no pomp and circumstance. She's like, here we go. Do you remember that at all, Dennis? With like fading out and then coming back and kind of wondering.
Oh yeah,
I mean, they play with the camera. The camera angle starts to wobble, like they're not supposed to be on air, and all that kind of fun stuff.
Yeah, at the very beginning, you think, oh man, this is a fuck up of some kind, but obviously it was intentional. And again, playing another crank on the audience. Are we throwing it to commercial, or and then she goes back to her diva character,
right?
And then she doesn't do it again.
No, that's what I thought was interesting, was that we didn't see her as that diva character anymore throughout the night.
You didn't get the episode-long arc?
No.
Right. And I thought I kind of thought we would, even when it came to, the Muppets or the intro or stuff.
I didn't miss it. It kind of felt like that was it for me. I wasn't expecting it again.
I agree with Brad, actually. I think that was enough. I don't think, there's so much to do with Lily.
And we'll talk about it. She's in so much as we get into this. Like, she was doing so much. It's like she didn't have time to kind of run that little gag because she was in practically everything.
Yeah.
She was in a lot.
Yeah.
In fact, she hosted the next show, which is one of the classics. It is Debate 76. So this is our first presidential debate between Chevy Chase's Gerald Ford and Dan Aykroyd's Jimmy Carter. So this is a classic sketch, if not for just the one line, but Lily plays the host a woman from the League of Women Voters. And what actually caught my attention was that she's in a wig and makeup, and there was a full costume change for her. And
so quick.
All of this stuff. Yeah, very quick. And John and Jane and Garrett play the, not moderators. What's the, that mean?
They were the journalists. They were going to ask the questions. I mean, that's
John
how they used to do it back then. They have like 3 people.
That's true.
Right. John actually plays the reporter from Rolling Stone.
Tom Burke,
who wrote the article that came out a few weeks earlier, a few months, I guess, at this point. And this was, Chevy and Dan filling those roles as the 2 candidates, and you could see Dan still working on that impression.
Right. It's better than it was in the first season. He obviously polished it a bit, worked on it during the time off. But, you knew he'd get it. And, of course, as time goes on, when Carter gets elected, he really makes it his own.
Yeah.
What was interesting to me rewatching this is I was reminded how there were several commentators back then who really thought Chevy's depiction of Gerald Ford cost Ford the election. Not just him alone, but the perception that Ford was a stumble bum, not that bright, didn't know where he was half the time. Whereas Jimmy Carter was portrayed as this sensible technocrat, like he had he knew all of the details of any given subject. Although he was very, as they pointed out, one of the great jokes in that bit about how vague he is, and he's being vague about talking about how vague
and the flip flop,
and the flip flop.
They definitely pick on both of them, but as you said, Dennis, they do seem to go harder on Ford and pick on him a bit more. Where the stuff they do on Carter, you're kind of like, oh, it's funny, but he's still like smarter or better.
Let me tell you something, man.
Brighter.
I knew I was like 17, but I knew Carter was going to win that election. Ford was so done. And I know Chevy later in life regretted what he did and became friends with Gerald Ford and appeared with him on television a couple of times. And I don't know if Chevy's depiction cost Ford the election. I don't think it went that deep, but nevertheless, it didn't help.
Right.
What was the question?
Abortion, man.
Abortion. Well, as you know, I support a constitutional amendment allowing the states to decide their own abortion laws, Mr. Allen. This would enable a woman who wishes to have an abortion to move to another state. Excuse me.
Mr. Carter, rebuttal.
I think my stance on the abortion issue is perfectly ambiguous and ill-defined. I see no reason to elaborate further.
Ms. Montgomery, a question on economics.
Yes, Mr. President, you said that the Humphrey-Hawkins bill will cost a possible $60 billion. But isn't it true that the jobs provided by the bill will create up to $150 billion in increased production? Using Walter Heller's figure that for every 1% unemployed, there is a resulting $37 billion loss in GNP. Now, at the present rate of taxation on GNP of 39%, doesn't this come to about the same $60 billion in increased revenue?
It was my understanding that there would be no math during the debates.
This is a great sketch. Top to bottom, though. Franken and Davis piece with Chevy and Dan, they all wrote it. And it's just like, it's amazing. You watch this and how this is like the template that they would make for 40-some years. Like, it's all there. Like, everything is there on the first go.
Yeah.
It's just so good. Hey, the set's great.
Set's perfect for, right?
I'm just so excited. I feel like it's going to take me 4 episodes to get over my hating every set from season 1 was the same set, and now they have more money because it comes up again this episode. But I'm like, it's a great set. It looks good. But no, it's just so well written. It's so funny.
And then we come to the podium fall. And this actually alters Chevy's second season, at least for a few episodes. Because remember, he leans forward and he falls on the podium.
You jumped in there. I like how we skipped the Watergate and the abortion jokes.
He bruised his testicles.
Yeah. During the dress rehearsal is what I'm not so surprised that he gets hurt in that fall hitting the podium, but the fact that he does it during the dress rehearsal and then does that whole rehearsal and does a whole show. before
Yeah.
he
Yeah,
goes.
see, that's
Like
the
if he's
thing.
that hurt,
It's got to be adrenaline, don't you think? I mean,
you know
you're
what?
on live TV, and
if he did it during the show, yes. I'm not knocking him at all. But the fact that he did it at dress would have been at 8:00. And that adrenaline took you through that whole down period. That's what surprises me. You don't see any signs that he's hurt. Like if you didn't know about it and read about it, you have no idea he got hurt hours before the show started.
Right.
And he soldiered on, man. I mean,
The sad part is, did they really need that fall
it's Chevy.
in the sketch? No, but to that point, you think Chevy he already did a fall in the cold open. And this is a really great sketch that's written really well. It's really smart. I mean, I legitimately to this day use a line, it was my understanding there would be no math. Like,
I mean, in honesty, you used it about
20
about
minutes
12
ago.
episodes
Exactly.
last season.
But that's to that point, I'm actually kind of surprised Chevy wanted to do a second fall in such a great sketch. I mean, it provided them an out. I understand it gave them.
I was going to say, I don't think they had an ending.
No.
Well, my immediate reaction in watching it was, if this were a more modern version of SNL, this would have been the cold open, and he would have done the fall live from New York.
Yeah, no, totally, yeah.
Well,
which all the more power to him for not doing it, because the cold open was great.
Right.
This is them throwing their cards down season 2. Here's our first real sketch of the season, and it's a classic sketch. I mean, this will go down forever as one of the best, and sets the standard for debate sketches going forward.
Absolutely. Totally.
And what's really funny, they did this sketch before the actual debate. The actual first debate didn't happen.
Is that true?
Until
I
a
didn't
week.
know that.
Yeah. So the first debate happened a week later. So this is the only time they've done this in the show. They did the presidential debate sketch before the actual debate. So they had nothing to go off of. They made this all up.
It's hilarious. Well, you mentioned Ron Nesson, and in the credits at the end of this sketch, Ron Nesson apparently did Gerald Ford's makeup.
They go right back to the Chirons. First sketch. They learned season 1. People love the Chirons. I couldn't keep up with all those names.
Yeah. There's Mrs. George Wallace, Forrest
Mick
Tucker.
Jagger did something.
Didn't they have,
Jagger.
Didn't they have like the Klingons was one of the the Klingons, I think.
Yeah, no, they were on there. Mr. Peanut, Dr. Seuss, like all of these people are on here. My favorite was that I caught was Gerald Ford's wardrobe was provided by Mistake.
Mistake, yeah. Amazing. Great sketch. What a way to kick it off.
Yeah. And our first musical guest of the second season then comes on with Lily introduces James Taylor, who sings Shower the People. Brad?
JT, Mr. 70s.
He was huge.
That's the thing. He was huge.
He was huge.
This was the lead single off his album that came out earlier that summer. The man releases a greatest hits album like 2 months later. He's a big deal. I thought it was odd he had pre-recorded backup singers. And I thought it was more odd that every time they went to the chorus, they cut to the tape machine, so you knew they were pre-recorded singers.
I think Carly Simon was on that tape, which is why they did it. I don't think they're going to bring her in just to sing backup.
But you could get backup singers in New York. I mean, he brings a whole band out later.
But Carly Simon sang backup on the record.
The actual. Yes, I get you. All right.
They should have pre-recorded Carly Simon in the studio like they did when Carly
They
Simon
did with Madeline
was the
Kahn.
guest.
She was there 4 months ago. Just record it then. I mean, I do like it is a sign of the new Saturday night. They're getting bigger musical acts, which I like. Yes, he's huge in the 70s, and I get a lot of people might not like James
I love
Taylor,
James Taylor.
But it's a good tune. He plays it well. It's good.
He's the epitome of laid back 70s pop rock or folk. Actually, I take that back. Folk rock.
Yeah. I was surprised how young James Taylor looked.
He's mid-20s.
Is he that young?
His first album was like 1969. His first
69,
album, which was like
70.
a bomb, was like 68, and his first big one was 70. But it was nice to see an artist who wasn't just covering songs from the 1920s.
Well, the
Season
thing is
2 is off to a good start.
He was 28 at this point, by the way.
Okay. James Taylor would become, I wouldn't say integral, but he became part of the SNL crowd as time went on. I mean, he became a semi-regular on the show, and whenever he performed music, he would be in sketches, like,
Oh, right.
And he worked with a lot of the writers and other things, but he became like part of that crowd.
Yeah, you could see that. Paul Simon-esque, a cooler version of Paul Simon.
Not as intense as Paul Simon.
Yeah,
Yes.
a cooler, more laid back.
Yeah.
But definitely part of that orbit.
They could have given him his own episode this season.
We're going to start Team JT versus Team Paul Simon. That's going to be season 2's battle. I did like the performance. I did think that, and then our next segment felt early in the show.
A weekend update?
Well, the music act felt kind of early after, we had one sketch in the music act, and then update really felt early.
But it wasn't really. I mean, in the length.
Because everything's going long open.
Like
sketch.
the long open, the long debate, and now we're,
Yeah,
I think I was around midnight. It's probably around midnight.
I think I was just counting numbers. Open monologue, one sketch, and all of a sudden, boom, boom. But the long sketches are really good. They were.
I mean, they held up. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Update. Yeah. Hold up. Not so much.
Well,
but it's always tough, as we say.
Well, there were some great jokes. One of which you couldn't do that today.
The tennis without balls.
Tennis without balls. Renee Richards.
Yeah.
Oh, there's no way, man. Come on. First of all, it's a joke
the
about
transgender tennis player who writes a book, right? She writes, they write a book, Tennis Without Balls.
Can you imagine Michael Chase saying that? No, I don't think so.
Funny though.
I can imagine him saying it, but not on SNL.
That did get the biggest laugh.
Yeah.
That bar is kind of low, like compared to the rest of Weekend Update so far.
I mean, they start
a huge laugh.
That's what we said with biggest laugh. I mean, they did start out 0 for 2.
That's not the biggest laugh. I think was he says Generalissimo Francisco.
No, they
Franco.
just applauded. It wasn't. I was taking.
It's a callback.
Yeah,
it wasn't as big as you. That tennis without balls line got a huge response.
Yes, it did. It's a great.
But
joke.
I'm amazed. But I mean, he starts that I'm Chevy or I'm God and you're
I'm God,
and let's almost crickets. And then he tries to do a joke. Or let's take a look at the first headline. And he looks down at the paper and like, no joke. I'm like, oh, Chevy, come on.
That was the joke.
And there's a Richard Speck joke, which I'm guessing Michael wrote. I don't know for sure, but Michael had a framed photo of Richard Speck in his office. So at SNL. And he was the only one who really did serial killing jokes. So
makes sense. Yeah.
Mao Zedong, our boy Idi Amin.
Yes. I did like the Idi Amin joke where he was going to get a transplant to become a human being.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And then we go back to the Blaine Hotel.
Blaine's still there.
Crumbling, but still poisoning and killing people.
Yeah. So Lorraine's there to report on an outbreak of foreign Legionnaire's disease, interviews John, who then succumbs to the disease. And then Lorraine succumbs to the disease. And my only thought was, are we done with the Lorraine reporter bit?
It's funny because I didn't hate this one.
I like John in this a lot. Actually.
Yeah, I like John, and because I usually hate Lorraine's correspondent character, but it was a funny joke. Was this O'Donoghue, Dennis? Do you know? It felt like O'Donoghue.
Oh, I don't know. That I couldn't tell you.
Both, I think the writing, and we've talked when we did season 1, like she does his voice very well.
Oh no. Lorraine of the three women, Lorraine was his voice, definitely.
And so when the sketches actually, she reports on people developing a foreign language and then dying, it felt like O'Donoghue. Her performance of it felt like O'Donoghue.
It wouldn't surprise me.
And then John was great. John comes out and she interviews John as the manager, and he starts speaking Spanish and dies. And Lorraine does a great job where she gets an accent and dies.
And it's absolutely has no reflection upon my hotel. Maybe it's a virus that's going around. It could be, the flu. Could be a cold. It could be. Buenos días, señores. Hablamos. Escuchen, gracias, Cabrera. Adiós.
Chevy, the count is now 31 people who have been felled by this curious disease. Doctors are at a loss, as are the police. Until something is determined, this is Lorraine Newman saying, Pourquoi plaît-tu, mon cher enfant?
What I like about John in that piece is his casual presence. You know what I mean? It's commanding, but it's casual. It's like he's just sort of like turns into the camera. His body language is so relaxed, but he's commanding.
Yeah.
And that to me, before everything went to hell with him later, that was what his genius was as a performer, is that he could play, he had that intensity, but yet it seemed so casual, like off the cuff.
Yeah.
And you really saw that in that piece.
Yeah, it's kind of that layover of what I was calling season 1 John, where he can play subtle and kind of impish, and it's not crazy. And yeah, you're right. He was really good in it.
This is when he was still an actor, before he became a celebrity. I mean, really, no, seriously. Yeah. I don't mean, I'm being serious. I mean, when after Animal House, forget it.
Right.
And, now John's a celebrity and he's got to live up to the hype. So then we go to Lily.
Yeah.
As Ernestine.
We're still doing commercials, apparently, Weekend Update.
Mm-hmm.
Thought they got rid of that at the end, but no.
But I thought this was a good commercial.
It was very good. It was very good. Yep.
And another laugh-in character on SNL.
But what I like about this, and she does this twice this episode, it felt like her laughing characters were more part of the show this time. And the first time she was on, she did like her own thing. Like, this is me and my laughing character. Where this time, this is a perfect example. Franken and Davis wrote this bit, I believe. And it's just,
you see Al Franken in the background.
Yeah. And it's a laughing character, but it's in the world of SNL. And it just adds to how well this plays, because this is a brilliant piece. It's so funny.
Here at the phone company, we handle 84 billion calls a year, serving everyone from presidents and kings to the scum of the earth. So we realize that every so often you can't get an operator. For no apparent reason, your phone goes out of order. Perhaps you've been charged for a call you didn't make. We don't care. Watch this. Just lost Peoria. You see, this phone system consists of a multi-billion-dollar matrix of space-age technology that is so sophisticated that even we can't handle it. But that's your problem, isn't it? So the next time you complain about your phone service, why don't you try using 2 Dixie cups with a string? We don't care. We don't have to. We're the phone company.
I love when you see any actor, but you saw it with Lily in the first time she was on, when they bring these characters and put them in a different circumstance. And it's just like, she falls right into that character and brings such life to it. It's great. Just talking
Lily
about
Tomlin
how the phone
was
company
brilliant.
doesn't care. Yeah, Lily Tomlin's amazing.
I mean, she really was. I mean, I think there's a whole generation doesn't know how great she really was, because, later in life, I mean, but her best work was character studies. We'll get to my favorite sketch of the show soon. But this next bit is not my favorite bit on the show at all. Anybody who knows me.
We're not done Weekend Update. Dennis, please.
No, I thought we were done.
No, sir. That was just a commercial.
I can't
we
wait
have
to
go
the
back to we have to make a Blaine Hotel callback, which actually was really funny with Don Pardo.
They've done that before.
And then we got to come back to Chevy, who still, I will give him credit, still plays dead jokes great. When he does the report about changing the slogan, "Have a nice day" to "So long now, see you soon," and no one laughs, and he just gives the look and the reaction like, well, fuck it. It's like, it's still great. And then Gary's favorite person calls in.
Yeah, Emily Litella calls in.
Oh, dear.
Because she heard about 5 crustaceans hijacking a plane.
But anyway.
I was never a big Emily Litella fan. I love Gilda, but Emily Litella did very little for me. And also Rosanna Dana, which I thought was even worse. But anyway, that's a whole other.
I just don't understand. Why do you ever call in? Put her on the desk.
This is the second time she's done the call in.
Yeah.
But the last time John was at the desk and then she called in.
Right.
Yeah.
Are you guys Emily Litella fans?
No.
Gary hates her. I don't mind her. I think sometimes they're written really well. Like
I think
the busing school children was great. There's a couple of them that are really good. Like any of those recurring characters, you hit the well too many times, you're going to run out. But I do think they get some really good ones in there.
I mean, Gilda's a great performer. I mean, so, she's going to bring it.
Yeah.
It just comes down to the writing. I just never really was into that character. And I love Gilda.
I say the same with John doing the weather, who I love Belushi, and it's like some of those weather reports are phenomenal and they're great. Some of them, you got to try, but yeah.
Well, all those Belushi desk bits were O'Donoghue.
O'Donoghue, yeah.
Of course, the best one comes later this season on the St. Patrick's show.
The Irish,
St. Patrick's show. That's my favorite. The Luck of the Irish.
Oh, they love their mothers, boy. They love their mothers. It's mother this and mother
the
that.
best.
Ireland must be heaven because my mother comes from there.
He just like flips out.
It's so good.
We talk about Chevy taking a fall. Let's not overlook Belushi's physical attributes here, because he could spin off.
Dennis, Brad never overlooks Belushi for anything.
I'll go 10 minutes on him doing King Bee and jumping off the stool. He's amazing.
No, he gave it his all, man.
But
when he was an actor, when he was a comic actor.
I feel like I interrupted. Dennis wanted to get to the Muppets. I'm sorry.
I wanted to strangle the Muppets early. I apologize.
Do they owe them an appearance? I thought they were done season 1.
Well, as Lily points out in the piece, the Muppet Show's already started, and they're filming they're taping that in London.
Yeah.
And it's a whole different crowd of Muppets.
Yep.
I'm amazed that they did bring them back. I mean, the whole premise was that they're all stored away in old file cabinets and
in the morgue, Muppets morgue, yeah.
Right. And they pop their heads out and there's actually, I will say, there are some funny lines about, they're not wanted anymore. But they were doing that in the first season. They were doing that with Anthony Perkins. I mean, we don't get much to do anymore, and so that's an ongoing thing. Is this the last time the Muppets appeared?
This is the final one, yes. Which it just seems weird. They come. I wondered two things. Like, one, if either Lily wanted them, because she actually was the first time a host was really good with the Muppets, and it was the first good Muppets bit. So I kind of wondered maybe if she wanted them back. And or maybe was there some kind of a deal when they left SNL that they would promote the Muppet Show?
That's what I thought.
Those are the two things I thought, either Lily or a deal to promote.
I thought it was they somehow worked in, all right, you can come on one last time and plug the Muppet Show and then we're done.
Yeah. And then, Gary, of course, it has to turn into an intro.
Yes. But hold on, though, because there was a moment where like the Lily tries to get the Muppets to whistle. They say they can because they don't want to say no to anything at this point, and they can't whistle because they're Muppets. And then the Muppets talk to Lily, but it felt like she all of a sudden couldn't hear them.
Or she took a weird turn. Like she was very pro Muppets, and then they couldn't whistle, and then she was like, I have no business.
Just walks off. Yeah.
Yeah. She's like, what?
And it's shot very dark, too. Did you notice that? Like it's a very dark shot. And like the second she leaves the set, it's like she's enveloped by darkness.
Yeah.
And then she plays that kind of weird vibe into the intro with James Taylor.
I like that because there's not like, ladies and gentlemen, James Taylor. She just like, wanders onto the stage and talks to him for, are you going to sing us another song? Very casually.
Yeah.
It's a looseness too. They're still not doing the, ladies and gentlemen, James Taylor. They're not doing that.
Yeah, they're still figuring out how to do the intros, and they do it all. And they do them all in this one. Like she does that. They do a Don Pardo intro. They do the sketch into intro. They do them all.
And
meanwhile, just to take note again, she's been in everything.
Yeah. Heavy show. Well,
she is doing it all.
Why not? She's great. I mean,
she is.
If you got Lily Tomlin in the building and, you use her.
Right. Didn't use many of the other women, but we'll get to that later.
That's true, actually.
We do have James Taylor, though, as we mentioned, singing I'm a Roadrunner, which Brad just, for your bingo card is a cover song. So you can check that off your box.
It is.
Yeah.
Covered by many.
Right.
I can't say this is one of the better covers.
I didn't like it.
Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan.
No, I was
probably because James Taylor, well, one, he's incredibly high, but he looks so weird without a guitar strap in front of him. He does not know what to do. He does not know what to do with his body. I'm pretty sure he's clapping off beat. I'm fairly certain.
He was clapping off beat.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And also, he did not need to pick up a tambourine in the second half of that song. Not needed.
Who is he? Davy Jones? What the hell is this?
Is he Chevy?
Well, exactly.
Yeah, it was an odd, I don't know. It's an odd, to me, it felt like an odd James Taylor tune. We got David Sanborn back in the building though. So we get that. Season
Not the
1,
last time
Phoebe
he'll
Snow.
be in 30 Rock.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. At the end of the day, I was kind of left with did we need that performance kind of thing?
Well, it's, I think up to that point, and the Muppets too. I mean, and again, the Muppets had a few good jokes. I'm not going to be completely unfair about that, but I mean, the show is really chugging along, and then you hit the Muppets and that James Taylor song, and sort of like, I wouldn't say it comes to a halt, but it just like the rhythm changes, the motion goes in a different direction.
I think Muppets, yes. The James Taylor song, because it actually had some energy to it. I didn't like the performance, but I didn't mind it. I enjoyed watching it, and it definitely, I thought it kept things moving along.
Okay.
Well, the tempo definitely changed with the next piece, right? So the next piece is, I thought it was brilliant.
It's amazing.
But it was a departure from everything else we've seen to this point.
How long is this? I know you timed it. If you didn't, don't worry about it. I just assumed you did. Okay. But it's another very long piece.
Yeah, it is 9.5 minutes.
Wow.
And you don't even notice it.
No.
What's funny is what I did notice being long was the first shot where it pulls out of the nativity scene and then the slow pan around the apartment.
With the Three Stooges clip in the background.
Yes.
Three Stooges.
Was the best part was the Three Stooges.
Yes.
Yeah, Shemp Three Stooges at that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not Curly. It was a Shemp stooge.
But that was the only part that I thought felt long was just that buildup of like, where are we going with this?
Well, I mean,
we should
it's
actually,
a dramatic piece.
Yeah, we should let Dennis. Do you want to do that? We should actually talk about what the sketch is before we rave about it, because we'll just keep talking about it.
Okay,
So,
it's
go ahead.
It's one of another Lily character, Tess, who usually is a street person or became like a street person, especially in her Broadway show. And she was like this mystical street person who ate out of garbage cans and things like that. But I wouldn't say obnoxious, but very upbeat. And I'm talking about the homeless character. This version of Tess, she's just lonely. She's looking for anybody to talk to about her life, which is empty. And so she invites Garrett. Garrett plays a real estate salesman for I don't know if it was a condo or a lake community or whatever it is. And Garrett's really good in this piece. I mean,
Garrett is great.
I mean, he's really good in it. He's a straight man, but you're not going to upstage Tess. I mean, just
but Garrett has at time had issues acting, like of pulling off his lines. So that's why I mean, like, it was great to see him pull this off because he was so good.
Yeah. Well, what was great about that sketch is it was reminiscent of Lily's early 70s specials. I mean, she did those kind of sketches where they were sort of dramatic with jokes, but it was primarily about a certain segment of humanity that gets overlooked or is hidden or forgotten. And the set design, that apartment, is absolutely perfect.
I had that note too. Another great set, new set.
Yeah. I mean, and that's a Lorne thing, to be honest with you. I mean, I know they had set designers and everything, but especially back then, Lorne oversaw everything. And I'm sure he said, no, it's got to be this, it's got to be that. And I'm sure Lily said the same thing. The sketch was primarily written by Marilyn Miller, but I mean, I know Lily and probably Jane Wagner contributed to it as well. I mean, because it's Lily's character. I mean, it's one of my favorite sketches in SNL history. I just think it's actually, it made me cry. I hadn't seen it in so long. And I started crying through it because Lily plays it so well and so convincingly. And she just plays this lonely, nameless woman who is just trying so hard to connect to anybody. And Garrett's character is great in the sense that he puts up with it longer than he should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and his character tries to show some empathy, but in the end, he's a salesman. He's not there to be friends. And then eventually he erupts and,
Mr. Senzo, I think I'll be going now.
You have to leave now? Why?
I have to meet someone for a dinner date.
You can have dinner here. You need a phone to call? I'd let you use mine, but I don't have one. Let's use that fella's upstairs, but he's a narcotic.
It's been very nice, Mr. Sanders.
Wait, you can't leave yet.
It's late.
Wait, now what about my complimentary John F. Kennedy Memorial ashtray? What about that?
We ran out of ashtrays, Mr. Sanders.
You can't just run out.
What about an Apollo 11 moon landing coin, okay?
Well, now I can't put cigarettes out in a coin, can I?
No.
Give it here. One small step, form, and...
For man. Not form, and. For man.
Sure, you hand these out all day. You got them memorized.
I have to go.
Wait, what about some eggnog?
No.
Hey, how about some eggnog?
No.
Where's your Christmas spirit?
Mr. DeCenzo, it's September. I have plenty of Christmas spirit in December. Only it's September.
I know it's September. Ed didn't say nothing about no coin. I'll be the first one to admit that it's September.
I can't say enough about that sketch. It's a lovely piece. Lily is so locked into it. And it harkened back, and the early SNL did this a lot too. They harkened back to like 50s television, because they grew up on it. And, that was, as Rosie Schuster has said, we are the first generation who grew up on television to do television.
Well, and they still do change of pace. Mm-hmm. Those early years, they would do this dramatic. That was a great way you described it, dramatic with some jokes. Because like my last note on this was not really funny. It had some funny parts, but was an amazing sketch. And nowadays you won't get that. And everything is laugh. No. It's laugh. So it's one of those things like to see back in those days. It's just, this is probably the first sketch I want to say I've seen so far in a season and Little Change where it finished. And my mind, I was like, I have to go back and watch that again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like
you're never bored in it. You're never bored in it.
No, it's so good. Oh my God.
This is probably, I think, the best performance we've seen on the first season and whatever change that we've watched of an actor taking a character, and there's so many levels to this character that she shows you.
Yes, so many layers.
And it's amazing. And like you said, Dennis, like this is a character she had, and she has, this was something that she did on this show in this episode that was just so well done and so amazing, and did, to your point, Brad, like it takes you out of it and you're like, I want to watch that again, because even though it's 9 minutes and whatever, there's so much there that you want to see it again.
Yeah. When you're talking about like all these stores that are downtown, and then she has this callback. It gets no laugh, but it's just the way she says it's close up. She goes, he got that at JCPenney's. They're downtown.
Yeah.
And it's just like, wow. Yeah, they're downtown.
Yeah. And again, like you said, she's in padding and makeup and a wig, and like she's made up this character. It's not just
her face is all scrunched up. Yeah.
Yeah, heavy makeup, and she's not just talking with a funny voice or anything. It's all there.
No, it's a whole thing. Yeah. Which I hopefully is a sign of things to come.
Right.
Season 2, you're getting the bigger sets, you're getting the more artistic design, the padding. So you get these characters. I mean, we're going to see it obviously in something like Coneheads late down the road, but you get these characters that get fleshed out even more, which I'm excited to see.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Oh, they're going to come back. I think season 2 is Marilyn Miller's really coming out party. I mean, some of her best sketches happen in this season. I mean, she had Slumber Party in the first season. I mean, she had some great stuff there too. Yeah. But I think she really hits her stride in this season, because you see those kind of sketches, and the ones I'm talking about, where they're semi-dramatic. Now, I don't know, even the ones I do like, I don't know if they'll ever top the one we're talking about with Lily and Garrett, but nevertheless, it's that same vibe. It's the same feel. They're still going for that kind of thing, no hard laughs.
Mm-hmm.
So they're moving. I mean, they're more willing to do this kind of stuff in season 2. And of course, then they start moving away from it once they have the recurring characters that the audience loves, and they start playing, for broader laughs, and their audience increases. And as their audience increases and their ratings go up, they get bigger budgets again. and especially when the Coneheads hit, which they hit later this season, they became just joke machines. But even that got co-opted, I thought, eventually. And I suppose if you keep doing it over and over again, you run out of original or dramatic ways of looking at it, and then you just go for the jokes. So, but thankfully we didn't have a bunch of test sketches. I'm thankful for that.
We just had more James Taylor.
JT, baby.
He comes back and sings Sweet Baby James.
Mm-hmm.
I see you have an attitude about this, Gary.
No, what do you want me to say about James Taylor singing Sweet Baby James?
You know what I'm going to say? I love this James Taylor episode 1. This is what you want. I feel like this is a great musical guest for this first episode, that they're saying, like, we're here, we've got obviously good comedic talent, and we're bringing music guests, and they're going to play stuff you want to hear. So we've heard Sweet Baby James so many times, but I mean, at least we're seeing James Taylor in his natural habitat behind a guitar. I mean,
well, that's what I'm saying. So, but okay. I agree with what you're saying, but I don't feel like I needed 3 James Taylor performances because of the middle one where he was covering
the Roadrunner. I agree.
They could have cut that one, but then you'd have that, that gap in the show. You got to fill it with something.
Well, right. And they did have a sketch that got cut with Lorraine and Lily, Lorraine Newman's Sherry, and Lily did that sorority girl character. She did episode 1, and they were that they're talking about the Miss America pageant in their characters. They did it in dress rehearsal. And I guess, I don't know, they thought either people didn't think it was funny or wasn't, but you could have put that in there and we would have seen Lorraine a little bit more, which would have been nice.
Yeah. But they figure you got James Taylor in the building. So
that's true.
You use him.
Yeah.
He's huge.
Well, we get Dan's pitchman to come back in our next commercial, which is Dan asking another Lily character from, I'm not sure if this is from Laugh-In, Dennis.
I think it's from her 70s, her early specials. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is Dan playing a character? Or is he playing Dan?
It's hard to tell.
Because at the end, I thought it was a pitchman, but the way the sketch ends, I thought he was then Dan.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe the line
he
is
wasn't
blurred.
he wasn't that detached from his persona. So
right. Yeah. But Dan, or the pitchman, whatever you want to call him, is asking Mrs. Judith Beasley to do a series of more and more awkward tasks, which is like to do the dishes, to put some jam on her husband's suit, to go to wax a gymnasium floor, and then the basketball team like runs around her, and then at the very end, he asks her to go into a motel room with a strange man and take off all her clothes and do the Antler Dance. And she does each of these tasks willingly. Yes. And the whole thing is posed as though, she's
it's posed like a commercial, like like they're asking for like an everyday woman to try our product and vouch for it.
That was very common back in the 70s.
Right.
Ads like, we asked this, housewife or these 2 housewives to taste, the new Ritz cracker, that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was a known trope. It was a known thing.
I did like Dan in the early bits there where she's putting the jam on and she says something like, I hope you're here when Harold gets home. And in the background, Dan's just shaking his head, like looks at the camera's like, nope. And then she says, he's going to pitch quite a fit. And he starts nodding in the back.
Well, just look at this. Just look how these luxurious suds rinse off this grease. Oh, my. My, how silky and smooth it is. I could hardly wait to soak my entire body in it.
Then we asked Mrs. Beasley to spread her preferred brand of jam, brand A, on her husband's good suit jacket.
Well, all right.
And our brand, brand B, on the pants.
I certainly hope that you are here when Harold gets home. I don't know how he's going to take this, but I would imagine that he will pitch quite a fit.
I then just kind of lost that idea. Then when she goes into the hotel about the Antler Dance, and Dan's outside, and he looks to camera and he says, "So if anyone from the Saturday Night Live show asked you to do something," and that's when I was like, "That's the joke. They're trying to turn it into."
Well, it's very much of its time.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say the Antler Dance was of its time, because you could do the Antler Dance anytime. I think the Antler Dance is a very timeless dance. They're still antlers today.
I thought this was a fun piece, though. Like, I enjoyed it. I thought it was strange.
It moved fast.
It did move fast.
It moved fast. The bits were funny. She was great. Dan was really funny. She wears that hamster head in the supermarket from episode 3 last year of the Fashion Don'ts. Alan Zweibel's in the background, like just
Marilyn Miller is there too.
Yeah.
It's like I totally enjoyed the piece.
Just to totally digress, we've had a lot of cameos from writers. You just mentioned Alan Zweibel and Marilyn Miller. Franken was in the telephone bit earlier.
Mm-hmm,
Tom Davis was in the debate piece we didn't mention as the referee. I feel like everybody's getting some screen time here, and not in like pre-tapes that we've seen.
Well,
although there are a lot of tastes, because Tess, because I was commenting on how much I liked that set, and I was like, what was the last set I liked? The debate. There's only been 2 quote unquote regular sketches this episode. From the cold open monologue, all you had is debate and Tess.
And Muppets.
You know, I wouldn't count Muppets. Like Muppets or Weekend Update, but 3, musical numbers. It was weird.
Brad, you're
I
absolutely
noticed,
right. I
like
never
there's
thought
not
of that,
a lot of legit sketches. And I the next sketch, which I didn't like at all and really felt like a filler. There's not, and I don't mean it as a knock, because I enjoy this episode and it's really well. It's just interesting that there weren't that many live sketches. That's all.
Yeah. You mentioned you didn't like the next sketch.
I did not.
As a Tom Schiller sketch. Anytime you see, especially in the early days, a piece about 20s Bohemia or the Lost Generation or the Jazz Age, 9.5 times out of 10 it's Tom Schiller.
Yeah.
I mean,
it just felt like
they're doing jokes about Cocteau and Picasso. I mean, even back then, that was a reach for the audience, I'm sure. See, Schiller worked with just about anybody on the show. I mean, he had his own distinctive style, but he was a collaborator. Yeah. And he worked with the women a lot, especially Marilyn. The two of them, really meshed. Yeah, but this is this piece it's very, especially the closing of Beaux Gestes and Petticoats. I mean, that's such a Tom Schiller line. Totally. Doesn't get a laugh. Always gets a smile out of me just because I know who wrote it and I just love it. It's a nice little poetic ending. Not a funny sketch. I mean, the whole juxtaposition of this high intellectual, artistic background and Lorraine's just got this dope. Like, I should have ordered the steak for dinner, or
right.
I wore high heels on this hike with Picasso, stuff like that.
I think these sketches are just tough in general too, where it's all voiceover. Like you're not even seeing the person saying the words. She's sitting at the desk. Because she sits at the desk and she's just writing, and it's her voiceover, and then there's pictures being flashed up. So it's just a tough, I think, mix of things to get laughs in general.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if that piece was meant to get laughs, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Oh, wait, did we jump ahead to the film to Gary Weiss already?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's what we're talking about not winning laughs. My apologies. Wow.
Okay.
Speaking of not getting laughs.
Introduce it because I have a very brief story about the person in this film, but you guys introduce it.
So the Gary Weiss's film this week is just a discussion with Taylor Mead, talking about his TV viewing habits. So Dennis, you have a Taylor Mead story?
As you know, Taylor Mead was part of the Warhol crowd, and he appeared in a couple of Warhol films, if you want to call them films. But I met and talked to Taylor Mead back in the 80s in Chelsea in New York. He was at this theater. I don't know why he was there. And I go, holy shit, that's Taylor Mead from Saturday Night. And I went over and I just said, hey, Taylor, my name's Dennis, blah, blah, blah. And, I loved you on Saturday Night and, the Gary Weiss films, because he did 2 of them, I think. And we talked for about 20 minutes. He was totally friendly. He was like he is in those movies. And he's like, very like, oh, yeah, that was really fun. Came into my apartment. I didn't even clean it. It smelled like cat piss, and that was it. And then my girlfriend goes, all right, let's go. I go, Taylor, good to meet you, man. Good luck. And that was it.
I just feel like this is shame on you, Gary Weiss. You had all summer to come up with something for episode 1. and you go back to Taylor Mead. Like, come on, man. Like, this is like a November Gary Weiss film. Like, I almost was wondering like if this was actually even new footage. Or he just was like replay. But then he was talking. Well, he started talking about the Miss America thing is what gave it away.
Oh,
he was talking about Miss America, and so I was like, oh, maybe it is new. Which I don't know if that makes it better or worse. Then he actually went out and shot new footage of Taylor Mead to show episode 1.
He was fascinated with him, wasn't he?
He was.
My immediate reaction was Taylor Mead was the only one who would say yes to Gary Weiss. And that is why we have another Taylor Mead film.
Actually, where were the cats? What happened there?
I know. Maybe you locked him in the bathroom.
Uh-oh. Or that cat no longer with us.
Or, yes.
I'm pretty sure that cat is no longer with us.
That cat was doing a lot of drugs.
That's right.
Wasn't he like blowing pot smoke in its face?
Cat was totally bombed by the end of that film.
Yeah.
All right, let's wrap this baby up.
Well, after that Gary Weiss film, we come back to Lily on stage talking about how she recently learned how to do the Antler Dance, which was featured in that last piece she was in. And she then starts singing a song about it.
Yes, earlier in the show, we said that if someone from Saturday night came up to you and asked you to do something, do it, no matter what it was. Now, there are a lot of things we might ask you to do. We might ask you to comb your hair with buttered toast, in which case I hope you have the good sense and discretion not to. We might ask you to set fire to your oven mitts. Why, we might even ask you to do the Antler Dance, in which case you ought to know the Antler Dance, and I'm here to teach it to you because I've learned it recently, and here's how I learned it. A man in a mask came into my room late last Saturday night. I said, hey, Mr. Mask, what you doing in here? He said, there ain't no cause for fright. I got a dance that'll beat the bump, the hustle and the hoochie crew. And then he took off his pants and did the Antler Dance. Now I'm going to show it to you.
Good friend Paul Schaefer sings the second verse of this song, and they all start doing the Antler Dance. And then the cast comes up. And then when we come back for the final goodnights, the entire audience and the Muppets are on stage, and apparently Brad saw Pepe.
I missed him in that, but I'll take your word for it.
We all missed him.
Pepe. It's all Alan Zweibel. I know that shirt anywhere, that red and blue striped shirt he's got. They're all there. Muppets came out. James Taylor
Rosie,
was out there doing it.
O'Donoghue,
Everybody.
Yeah, everybody was there. Everybody was having a blast.
This is the best, probably the best good nights we've seen.
I would put it on the same par with the Good Nights with Desi Arnaz.
I was just going to say the same thing.
We love that one. And the reason I put this above is this is original. Desi Arnaz's was fantastic, but he was, he was playing a Desi Arnaz song. The fact that this was original SNL, that's why I like this one better. But yeah, same exact thing. And this is O'Donoghue, right, Dennis?
Yeah, Michael wrote the song with Paul Schaefer. Paul wrote the music, Michael wrote the lyrics. And it was Michael's, he just had this silly concept. It didn't. He just wanted to
create like a dance craze, right?
Right. Well, that was his joke. I mean, there's no way that in 1976 you're going to have an Antler dance craze. But it was just a silly thing. I mean, that's the thing about Michael. A lot of people, they seem to think all he did was death humor, and that's not true. I mean, yeah, he was that was like his bread and butter, and that's what he got known for at the Lampoon. But even at the Lampoon, he wrote silly stuff. He wrote really dopey jokes. I have all of his notebooks from 1974 to like 1986.
Oh my God.
Wow.
And I Xeroxed them all when I had access to his files.
Wow.
And you see a lot of his ideas, and Antler Dance is in there. There's a lot of stuff in there that eventually ended up on the show. I mean, and they could just be like 2 or 3 words. And then it's just, obviously like, oh yeah, that. And there's stuff you've never seen. He had this one thing he wanted a tarantula to tap dance on a butter dish. You got me. In any event, so Michael could write silly stuff.
Yeah.
He had
and good stuff. I mean, that Citizen Kane sketch from season 1 and Star Trek. I mean, yeah.
So he wasn't just deaf. And I remember hearing you guys talking about Bob Schiller.
The Bob Schiller letter.
Yeah, the note. Why doesn't O'Donoghue just shoot himself, get his laugh, and move on to something else? Yeah. And I I remember Donnie replied to that. I think it was in either Playboy or one of those 70s like circus magazine, or I can't quite remember. But anyway, he mentioned Bob Schiller, and he says, well, I respect Bob Schiller and, his career, which he did, honestly. He goes, but he's an old man. He just doesn't get what's going on today. He goes, in his day, it was Fred Nethel knocking on your door. In my day, it's Charles Manson. So he had an answer for him. But I mean, yeah. But I think maybe Bob Schiller was there maybe a week where he was doing a lot of death.
Yeah.
And anyway, and I agree with you. I love the ending. It's just so joyous. And the show, for the most part, is very strong. It's a great premiere for in my view, a great season.
Oh, it's a great return. Season 2 opener. Yeah. Fantastic.
But
return.
I think season 2 is a great season. I really do. And you really see the show evolve and grow relatively quickly. I mean, the first season, they're still trying to find their way. It's a variety show, then it's not a variety show. And toward the end, obviously, by the summer shows, you could see they're moving in a certain direction. And with this show, it's definite that they're moving in a different direction, and the show is evolving.
Absolutely. And I think, if you remove the 2 summer shows, right?
I have a weird appreciation of the Chris Christopherson show. It's not a very good show. And as you know, Christopherson was drunk through the whole thing.
No, not at all.
No, not at all.
But anyway, yeah, it's the show is starting to evolve, and it's becoming more confident in itself, and it's willing to take more chances, and it's also becoming a mainstream fixture. Yeah. And by the 3rd season, it is a mainstream fixture.
Right.
And from that point on, off to the races until Gene Domanian. And then we skid into the wall, and who the hell knows what's going on.
But I agree entirely. This episode, it's really fun. It's really weird though. A little bit at the end, it really felt, as I started thinking about it, like a weird episode. Because as much as Lily Tomlin was in a lot, which I really liked, and it was a great episode, it was fun, there didn't seem to be that many, what I would call, like I said earlier, real sketches. You have the debate sketch, Tess, and the Lorraine Newman Women in Literature sketch. That's really it. That's other than the Muppets. Right. You have 3 songs, 2 films.
You have
two taped films.
You have 5 songs.
I wasn't counting the Muppets. I didn't want to count the Muppet song. What's the other one I'm missing?
The Antler Dance at the end.
Oh,
that's a whole song.
But that was it was so great. It didn't even.
You didn't even think about it.
I can't knock that as a song. Right. But it just
you do nothing. Wait. You do nothing but complain about all of the singing on the show.
That was great. That one was great.
You don't like the music on the show?
He doesn't like when hosts.
Season 1 had a little too. No, season 1 had a little too much singing, like a Diane Cannon singing, or Alan Kahn, who I love, singing Raquel like 5 songs. Raquel Welch singing. Elliot Gould coming out the second time he hosted and busting right into song in his monologue. And I don't mean it as a bad thing. There was a weird vibe to it where just the amount of sketches versus music versus pre-tapes. But I enjoyed it. She was great, and you mentioned this a little bit earlier, Gary. Kind of lost the cast here and there. Like at one point, I was like, we didn't really see Gilda other than Emily Litella, because I forgot she was in the opening, but she's in those 2 bits. Jane wasn't in a lot other than
she wasn't in after the debate. Jane was only in the open and the debate. Gilda was in the open and Emily Litella. Lorraine was in the writing thing and the weekend update. Dan was in that pre-tape. John was in the debate and the weekend update. Chevy wasn't in a lot. I mean, Chevy was in weekend update and the open and the debate.
But that's what I mean. It feels weird to me because she was in so much and she wasn't doing her solo stuff. So it's like, I can't put my finger on it. But if I was Dennis's age in 1976 and I saw this episode, I would be very excited for the rest of season 2.
I totally was, man. I could talk about that season forever. You should have me on for every show of second season. I'll lay it all down for you.
I went back, Dennis, forgive me, but did you not write a piece back for like Huffington Post ages ago when the DVD's coming out saying that this was your favorite season? This was the best season. Yeah,
I did, as a matter of fact.
It was an interesting point that you made. It's the last season they're really experimenting or going out on limbs or trying different things because their popularity just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And by the time season 3 comes around, they're doing the the recurring characters, and they're hitting the broader audiences, and they're not doing as many of the Marilyn Miller drama pieces, or they're not doing weird Dan Aykroyd TV songs about the creation of television. Or
there were moments,
but they get
there,
few and far between. So I think season 2 is just so exciting because they're still figuring things out, especially when we get to losing Chevy. And
well, he said later, of course, he said he regretted it, but then he also said that his thing to sort of justify him leaving so early, especially with the splash that he made, that he said, I thought we just should have torn the shit out of TV for one season, taken a break, and came back, rested with a whole new perspective. That was his idea. Now, I don't know how serious he was about that and especially with someone who's worked in television even before Saturday night, he knows the beast television is. Once something's successful, it devours it. NBC's not going to go, oh, we got this hit, take a year off.
Right. And figure out
come back with a whole new satirical angle.
No, in fact, they're like, now we're going to have you come in the summer.
Right.
Exactly. Because they're selling advertising, hey, this hip young show. And for a network that was resolutely against the show from the beginning, save for a few executives, but as an institution was not terribly crazy about this idea.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, Lauren and the brilliant staff that he put together, and you can say a lot of things about Lauren, but I'll tell you, man, he put together a great original staff, a real eclectic staff. And imagine if he had the budget to put Bill Murray in the first season, they were going to hire, he wanted to hire Bill Murray too. It would have been the original 8, not the original 7. And they didn't have the money. So when Chevy left, obviously, who's next? Who's next in line? Bill.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's a great show. It's one of my favorites. The test sketch is one of my favorites of all time. And the Antler Dance is silly, and I love the way it ends.
So would you say, are those your best bits then, Dennis? Tess and Antler Dance? Antler Dance and Tess. All right. Brad, that would include the Judith Beasley / Antler Dance.
I've got to throw Debate 76 in.
It's a good sketch.
I mean, really, it just because it's very good, and it just sets the template for 49 more years, 48 more years.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, and Tess and the Antler Dance. Yeah,
yeah. I have nothing to add. Those were my 3 that I thought were call outs. The only other piece that I really liked, and this was short and sweet, I thought was the phone company bit where she was Ernestine.
Excellent.
Yeah,
excellent.
It was so well
I would add that then. Yeah, I would say it's one of my favorites too. That it's just
there's nothing wrong with that. There's no misses.
No, it's
there's
not.
no misses.
No. Well, this was great. This was a really fun show. Dennis,
thank you so much.
Wonderful having you here. Thank you
for having me on. Keep me in mind for the Gene Domanian period, please. I beg you.
If we make it to season 5 and we decide to keep going,
there's
a pretty good odds we just jumped that whole season 6 through 10.
Oh no, you gotta do Domanian. Oh my God, are you kidding me? There's like this revisionist view of the Domanian period. Like it's not as bad as people think, and actually there's some really great material. Comedy is subjective and all that jazz. But I mean, I watched, again, because I'm an old man, I watched the Domanian season in real time. And I remember at the time like going, what the fuck is this?
Well, thank you again for
having me. I really appreciate it.
It's a treat. Thank you.
If anyone out there hasn't read Mr. Mike by Dennis Perrin, go get it and read it. It's wonderful. And Dennis, you have a new podcast?
Yeah, with William Hamm, who you might know or know of, called Laughing at Others, which was from O'Donoghue, but I didn't name it. William named it. We did one already. It was about SNL pre-tapes, the history of pre-tapes from Albert Brooks on.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard it, but
yeah.
And we have 2 in the can, one about Paul Rubens, Pee Wee Herman, and the definitive dissection of Fridays.
Nice.
That's
great.
I'm looking forward to that one.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. This was wonderful. We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. I love your podcast. I really enjoy listening to it. I don't know if I'll listen to this one, but I'll probably the one after.
Well, next week we're talking about season 2, episode 2, with host Norman Lear and musical guest Boz Skaggs. So until then, good night and have a pleasant tomorrow.
And have a pleasant tomorrow.